At exactly 11 a.m., an elderly man in simple, worn clothes slowly made his way toward the city's most luxurious five-star hotel in downtown Manhattan. His name was Robert Mitchell. He carried an old, faded duffel bag in his hand, but as soon as he reached the hotel entrance, the security guard's face immediately tightened with disapproval. The guard stepped forward, blocking his path, and said, "Sir, I think you might be lost. What brings you here?" Robert smiled gently and replied, "Son, I have a reservation here. I just wanted to check on it." The guard laughed and turned to his colleague, saying, "Hey, check this out. This old man says he has a reservation here." Then he looked back at Robert and said, "Sir, I think there's been some mistake. Maybe someone gave you the wrong address because this hotel is extremely expensive. Only wealthy business people stay here. An average person can't afford this place." Just then, the hotel receptionist, Jessica Sanders, overheard the conversation. She glanced at Robert, looking him up and down from head to toe, and a slight smirk appeared on her lips. Not a welcoming smile, but one of mockery and contempt. Jessica said, "Sir, I don't think you have any reservation at this hotel. This place is very expensive. You've probably come to the wrong location." Robert replied with the same calm demeanor, "Miss, could you please just check? Maybe my reservation is here." Jessica shrugged carelessly and said, "All right, sir, this will take some time. Why don't you go sit in the waiting area?" Robert nodded and slowly walked toward the waiting area. Many guests in the lobby were staring at him with odd, judgmental looks. Someone whispered, "Looks like he came here for free food." Another person said, "He probably can't even afford a glass of water from this place." Robert heard all of this, but remained silent. He sat down on a chair in the corner, placed his bag on the floor, rested both hands on his walking stick, and sat quietly. The lobby atmosphere had become strange. People were sipping their tea and coffee while pointing at him and making comments. A small child innocently asked his mother, "Mommy, why is that old man sitting here? He doesn't look like he belongs in this hotel." The mother replied softly, "Son, it's all about luck. When luck doesn't favor you, everyone has to face humiliation." Meanwhile, Jessica passed by again and said to her colleague, "I don't know what the manager will say. Having such people sitting here is risky. It's damaging the hotel's image." Her colleague laughed and said, "Don't worry, he'll get up and leave on his own soon enough." Robert heard all of this, but couldn't say a word. He was just waiting for someone to listen to him. He sat there for an entire hour, occasionally checking his watch and glancing toward the reception. He hoped someone would come and say, "Yes, sir, your reservation is confirmed." But that didn't happen. Robert slowly used the chair for support and stood up. He looked toward the reception and said, "Miss, if you're busy, please call your manager. I need to speak with him about something important." Jessica thought to herself, "Now he wants to meet the manager too?" She reluctantly picked up the phone and called the hotel manager, Victor Thompson. She said, "Sir, an elderly man wants to meet with you." Victor looked at Robert from a distance and said with a laugh over the phone, "Is he our guest, or did he just wander in? I don't have time right now. Let him sit. He'll leave on his own soon." Jessica repeated the same instruction and told Robert to wait a little longer. Robert took a deep breath and sat back down on the same corner chair. The weight of everyone's stares was on his shoulders, but his eyes still held that same patience, as if saying the truth can be hidden, but not stopped. Robert was still sitting in the lobby as time slowly passed, but each minute felt like a mountain weighing on him. Meanwhile, receptionist Jessica Sanders came back to him and said in a curt voice, "Sir, you'll have to wait a bit longer. The manager is still busy." Robert smiled and nodded, saying, "That's fine, miss, I'll wait." At the same time, Hotel manager Victor Thompson was in his cabin talking on the phone with an international client, his face clearly showing arrogance. As soon as he hung up, Jessica called him again from the reception. She said, "Sir, that elderly man is still sitting in the lobby. Could you please meet with him once?" The hotel lobby was filled with elegant furniture and ambient lighting, creating a warm yet tense atmosphere. The phone on the reception desk, a sleek black model, sat silently, waiting for the next call. Victor laughed and said, "Let him keep sitting. He'll get tired soon and leave on his own. I don't have time for such useless people." Just then, a young employee arrived. His name was Marcus Rivera, the hotel bellhop. He saw Robert sitting there while everyone in the lobby was making fun of him, but Marcus's eyes showed respect for him. He quietly approached and said, "Sir, how long have you been sitting here? Hasn't anyone helped you?" Robert smiled at him and said, "Son, I want to meet the manager, but it seems he's busy." Marcus's face tightened. He said, "Sir, don't worry. I'll talk to him right now." Robert nodded and said, "Thank you so much, son. May God keep you happy." Marcus walked quickly toward the manager's cabin, knocked on the door when he reached it, and went inside. Victor Thompson gestured, asking what the matter was, and Marcus respectfully said, "Sir, there's an elderly gentleman sitting in the lobby. He wants to meet with you." Victor raised his eyebrows and said in a cold voice, "Marcus, how many times have I told you to stay away from useless people? He's not a guest. He's probably just some confused person who wandered in." Marcus tried again, saying, "But sir, he said he needs to speak with you about something important." Victor laughed out loud and said, "Important matter? Do you have any idea how much business happens here worth millions of dollars, and you want me to meet with some old man?" Marcus stayed quiet but felt hurt inside, thinking, how can someone be rejected just based on their appearance, and does sitting in a high position mean one should forget their humanity? Victor said sternly, "Marcus, do your job. This matter is beyond your scope." Marcus bowed his head and left the cabin. Returning to the lobby, he looked at Robert, seeing the depth in his eyes and his patience, and realized this matter wasn't just about the hotel anymore. It was a test of humanity. Gradually, evening approached. Guests went to their rooms, and the staff got busy with their work, but the turmoil in Marcus's heart kept growing. He was certain that tomorrow would change the face of this hotel. The next morning's scene was completely different. There was activity in every corner of the hotel, and the staff was whispering among themselves. Someone said, "The old man who came yesterday, I think there's something big about him." Another replied, "Yeah, I heard he's a major shareholder in the hotel." This news had slowly spread throughout the entire hotel, but no one could quite believe it yet. Everyone was wondering, could that elderly man really be the owner of this luxurious hotel? At 10:30 a.m., the lobby atmosphere suddenly changed when the same simply dressed elderly man, Robert Mitchell, entered through the hotel's main entrance, but this time he wasn't alone. Accompanying him was an official in a suit carrying a black briefcase. Everyone's eyes fixed in that direction at the same instant. The guards, receptionist, waiters, everyone stood frozen in silence. The person everyone had ignored yesterday was now entering the hotel like royalty. Robert gestured directly with his hand and said, "Call the manager," and his voice no longer had any softness, but rather the firmness of a command. Within moments, Victor Thompson came out, his face showing slight nervousness though his arrogance was still intact, and he said with a half smile, "Yes, sir. You came back again today?" Robert looked into his eyes and said in a cold voice, "Victor Thompson, I told you yesterday that you would face the consequences of your actions. That day has arrived." Victor became flustered and tried to deflect with laughter, but the official who came with Robert opened his briefcase, pulled out a thick file, and placed it on the table in front of everyone, saying loudly, "These documents clearly show that 65% of this hotel's shares are in Robert Mitchell's name. He is the real owner." The entire staff was stunned. Jessica Sanders' hands started trembling, and the guests present in the lobby looked at each other and whispered, "He really is the owner. What a terrible mistake we made." Robert planted his walking stick firmly on the ground, and his voice was now loud and resolute as he said, "Victor Thompson, from today you are no longer the manager of this hotel. Marcus Rivera will now take over this position." Victor, shaking with anger, said, "Who are you to remove me? I've been running this hotel for years." Robert thundered, "I built this hotel. Its foundation was laid with my hard work. If I want, I can show you the door this very moment, but as punishment, you're being assigned to field work. Now you'll do the same jobs you made others do." Robert called Marcus over, placed his hand on his shoulder, and said, "You didn't have wealth, but you had humanity in your heart. That's the real capability, which is why you deserve this position." Tears flowed from Marcus's eyes as he said emotionally, "Sir, I just showed basic humanity." Robert smiled and said, "That's the greatest qualification, son." Then he looked at receptionist Jessica Sanders with a gaze so stern that Jessica trembled, and Robert said, "Jessica, this is your first mistake, so I'm forgiving you, but remember, never judge anyone in this hotel by their clothes. Every person's dignity is equal." Jessica folded her hands and said tearfully, "Please forgive me. This will never happen again." Robert looked around and said loudly, "Listen, everyone. This hotel is not just for the wealthy. Here, humanity will be the real identity. Anyone who discriminates between rich and poor will not be worthy of staying in this place."